It's very important that communities pay attention to the walkability and bikeability of their road system. Um, Studies have shown that the communities that have the most robust pedestrian and bicycle facilities have the most people walking and bicycling, unsurprisingly. Walking and bicycling correlate very strongly with improved health outcomes, are a green mode of transportation and recreation, and generally improve quality of life and economic vibrancy. So when a community invests in making its transportation system more supportive of people walking and bicycling, there are all kinds of ancillary benefits that come from that. There's a lot of interest in making communities walkable and bikeable across the country, and certainly in New England. In Maine, I have been involved with the development of edge lane road projects in 9 different communities. Again, it seems like a great option that's low cost and easy to do. Edge lane roads in Yarmouth have been a popular option because they are low cost and they are an impactful intervention. There are 9 roads treated with edge lanes in Yarmouth. Yarmouth was actually the first place in the state to have an edge lane road up on Morton Lane. It just beat Scarborough, which was developing an edge lane road project at the same time. I think that the big advantage that Yarmouth has realized by using edge lane roads is the creation of space for people to walk and bike at extremely low cost. Edge lane roads are a facility option that is useful in situations where you have people actually walking on the roads but no other accommodation for them. So there's no sidewalk present, there's no road shoulder, and pedestrians are forced to just walk on the edge of the road. With an edge lane road, you mark out where pedestrians or bicycle riders can be and define a space on the asphalt for them to use. And people do appreciate having that clearly marked out. Edge lane roads offer the advantage of being an extremely low-cost intervention that can be done pretty much on any road with its existing cross-section. If you want to keep 2 11-foot travel lanes and add bike lanes, you need a minimum of an additional 10 feet. An edge lane road, in contrast, you're repurposing the available pavement in its current width. You're just allocating some of it to vulnerable users and putting the cars into a combined center lane. I believe that edge lane roads do make for a better experience for bicyclists and walkers, particularly if they're low-skilled riders. And it is simply because you've indicated this is where you should ride or walk. And I think the people like knowing where they should be, and I think the drivers appreciate it as well.
Sure. Yarmouth Bike and Pedestrian Committee, we're a volunteer group. Our goal is to create networks of biking, walking, active transportation networks throughout town that are safe and accessible for people of all ages or abilities. Safe biking and walking is really important for the town of Yarmouth. It's something that I think the town feels really, really strongly about. It's something that residents all across the town really value, is the fact that we have sidewalks, trails that connect our neighborhoods, safe ways to get places. The advisory lanes in town, or the edge lanes, are a really important part of this network I talked about earlier. They're one tool in our toolbox. We have a lot of tools. Advisory lanes are perfect for these smaller roads with a little less traffic, where maybe a sidewalk isn't possible, but we know we have a lot of walking and biking. And that creates a little space for them. It helps slow down drivers. It signals that this is a street that welcomes people walking and biking. And they're a really important part, again, of our commitment of building this network. As somebody who uses the advisory roads with the advisory lanes often, whether I'm biking or walking, I've noticed that drivers that are driving on these roads are driving a lot slower. They're a lot more aware of people who are biking and walking. And so I've actually found that it's a much more comfortable experience, especially on the street we're along here on South, which is a really popular cutoff, but it's one that's also very popular for walking and biking. My family uses it all the time to get to preschool, get to daycare on our bike. And I found that drivers are a lot more careful, a lot more aware of us, and they've slowed down for sure. So the big advantages that Yarmouth has seen from the use of advisory lanes is that we've really created space for people to walk and bike. People who live along these streets or who use these streets have been really receptive to them. And what we've found is that people are asking for these treatments to be added. And we have a great example is the road that leads to our town landing, where there's a lot of walking traffic. To his credit, the harbor master saw advisory lanes as an opportunity because they've been so successful and they've been very well received. And I think both drivers and people walking and biking are getting more and more used to them.
It is important to citizens to have access to the Yarmouth waterfront. We've been looked at as the gateway to the waterfront for many years with our access to the Royal River. Pedestrian access is one of our important features for a long history of Yarmouth. Some people come to the harbor area by bicycle, by walking their dog. Pretty consistently, we have a great picnic area, a great green spot down there, and a beautiful view of the Royal River. Old Shipyard Road was identified for advisory bike lanes by the Harbor Committee and the Bike and Ped Committee as the only access to the Yarmouth Harbor. There's no other way for pedestrians to get to the harbor to a public access point other than the Old Shipyard Road. The impact of Old Shipyard Road when advisory bike lanes went in was rather positive. One, it gave pedestrians a safe walking area, and it also slowed traffic down as kind of a second component. And we see a lot more road sharing for all uses at this point. People adapted very easily to the new design of the advisory bike lanes. No confusion, it seemed to be a very smooth transition. Driver behavior has improved since the advisory bike lanes have gone in. People are slowing down, and it seems to be a very comfortable transition. I think more people have become comfortable walking Old Shipyard Road due to the advisory bike lanes. Maybe they didn't realize they could walk that area prior, but with those in place and signs up, I believe that more users are taking advantage of the opportunity. I think Yarmouth has realized the adoption of advisory bike lanes has provided safe pedestrian access. It has encouraged walking in areas that maybe weren't walked prior. And it has also had a good impact, I think, on vehicle traffic, slowing down and sharing the road. I'd recommend other communities considering advisory bike lanes to give it a try. For Yarmouth, I believe it has had a positive impact.
I think that safe walking lanes like these edge lane streets are important because we can get outside and not feel anxious about our safety. A lot of people are walking babies. People are walking loved ones with walkers and wheelchairs, and I'm walking dogs. And I like to feel like I have a safe space on the street. We find that we're able to enjoy walking the dogs. We think that drivers are behaving a little differently. They see a line, I think they're mostly getting the message. So we feel like we're in the right place. I think it's a much better experience for a walker or a bicyclist to be in an edge lane, because on a regular two-way road with just a little shoulder or kind of what they call a fog line on the side, there's really not enough space for you. A center strip with two vehicle lanes works for cars. But where are the pedestrians and especially learning bicyclists supposed to be? In our neighborhood, it was a great solution because we have some old trees and telephone poles and property features that don't allow for the construction of sidewalks. Everybody wants sidewalks, but nobody wants to lose the character of their neighborhood. So I think this was a great solution. At the beginning, I know that some people were confused. They'd never seen this before. I think public education is key. If a few key people know in each neighborhood and can explain it to their neighbors, that's important. The flyers and the little posters were important. It's a change. And generally in Yarmouth, people want to do the right thing.
Public safety on the streets of Yarmouth is incredibly important. It really is the main navigation route for people to get around, whether they're biking, walking, or traveling in a vehicle. So it's vital that we keep our community safe in that way. I think the biggest thing we've done is collaborate with department heads here and the community to provide education, provide options for increasing safety on the street in a way to bring together all modes of transportation safely. I think with the traditional safety lines, there's always a risk. If the shoulders aren't wide enough and it doesn't give you a lot of space for maybe bikes or pedestrians, sometimes some of the larger straightaways can have speed issues. There has been some change with drivers on the road with edge lanes. I think just the fact that visually it narrows the road, they tend to slow down. And especially when there are bike and pedestrians that are using the roads as well, that combination really does make an impact on the roads. I think there has been speed changes with the edge road design. It visually narrows the road. So especially for some of the smaller roads, it provides opportunities for people to slow down and take more caution in their operation. When navigating on a road with edge lanes, the way that you handle oncoming traffic is essentially you just pull to the side, utilize the edge lane for your travel in a slow and responsible way as long as there's no pedestrians or cyclists. And then the two vehicles just simply pass as they would on a normal width road and then go back to using the center lane after that obstacle is cleared. I'm sure there are concerns about edge lane roads. Primarily, there's been no accidents related to those. The only potential issue that we have sometimes in our designs are the ability for cars to park on the street, which sometimes creates a visibility issue, but there has been no accidents based on implementing edge lanes. From a public safety perspective, I think the greatest benefit is slowing down of traffic, creating safe spaces for all modes of transportation, and ultimately creating a sense of community safety with the project.
It really is a citizen initiative. It really started back in the comprehensive plan of 2010 when we began to turn our attention to making our roads for everybody. Edge lane roads are really part of a larger vision of complete streets and a whole community of vigorous engagement with one another, with being able to move around with not necessarily using your vehicle. It's added to that is our desire to be active in fighting climate change issues and really making this kind of a community where people feel safe and welcome, moving everywhere and networking between places. The takeaway lessons for me, and I hope for others from this whole experience, really is to trust the people that are here and help them articulate their vision, be willing to take some risks. One of the first things that we did was to paint some sharrows on the street. And long before we did edge lines, we did a few sharrows in experimental areas. And there was all kinds of strange reaction to that because people didn't know what it was for and what our intentions were. But people changed their views very quickly. And the message to the whole world was, bikes are welcome here, and people are welcome here. And people have responded to that. And so now it's a question of, how do we keep up with the demand that we started? People came out and supported it and began to use it, and it's a snowball effect. Once you create this opportunity, it'd be like opening the first pickleball court in some community. You will be overrun with the demand for pickleball courts that you never knew you had before, and it's just really great to see it happen.
What I would tell other communities who are thinking about advisory lanes or edge lanes is to give it a go. Pilot it like we did. Find a street that's might be low volume, where there's not sidewalks, where you can't fit a sidewalk, but is popular for walking and biking, and give it a go. And I think one of the most important things is just to pilot it and try it out and get people's reactions to it, because what you see is, while it might surprise people at first, people get really excited about, people want to bike and walk more. They want to feel safe on our roads. And I think, this again is just one way that a community can do that. And I think the most important thing is not to let anything hold you back. Just try these solutions out and see what works best for your neighborhood or for your community.